hundreds of years ago, and we have exclusive access. This is the best water in the world.
Because there's this aquifer that was discovered in Fiji, and then he moved in and, bought it or leased it?
Yeah, he obtained a 99-year lease on this aquifer, and what I talk about in the story, too, is the aquifer was actually discovered by the Fijian government working in tandem with international aid groups who were surveying the island for water, for the people. But then it turned out that basically people working with David Gilmore and his company, they heard of this report, and they secured the lease on the land for 99 years. So to go back to your question, it really is a fascinating thing to see how this product evolved, because it really was this extremely luxury product. But now, since it's become the most imported water in America, it's really gone mainstream. And the shift, though, under the new owners who bought it in 2004, we talk about in the story, Stuart and Linda Resnick, has really been to transform it into an ecological and a progressive product almost. So it's really shifted from this, again, a luxury product to a product where you're ecologically and you're socially responsible if you drink it. It's really how the product has evolved over time.
And its relationship to the government?
I mean, Fiji has trademarked the name Fiji, and its marketing campaign, what the government calls it is brand Fiji. And, throughout, if you look at the bottle and the slogans it has used, it has been to brand the country, the image of the country as basically an unspoiled paradise. I mean, that's sort of been the idea of where this water comes from an unspoiled paradise. So, over the years, they have worked with the government. Last year, I spoke with one of the Fiji Water spokesmen, and what he said to me was, we basically market Fiji with the product. He also said that it's one of the few products that the government is able to get off the island, so it's been a really good thing for the government. And I think, as a lot of people in the States know, I mean, one of the only and the first things we hear and think about when we hear Fiji is Fiji Water. I mean, the company has really sort of capitalized on the fact that this is a very small nation. We don't talk a lot about it. We don't know a lot about it. And this is something that comes up a lot, that, the government basically has thanked the company and said, we have brand Fiji now. It's this idea as an unspoiled paradise. You've created it. And to go back to the size of it in the country, the company now says that it's 20% of Fiji's exports, and that's 3% of its GDP, which is $3,900. So it's a pretty big.
Anna Lenzer, we invited Fiji Water to join us on the program. They declined. But in a statement posted on their website, the company writes in part, quote, "We strongly disagree with the author's premise that because we're in business in Fiji, somehow that legitimizes a military dictatorship. We bought Fiji Water in November 2004 when Fiji was governed by a democratically elected government. We cannot and will not speak for the government, but we will not back down from our commitment to the people, development, and communities of Fiji. We consider Fiji our home, and as such, we've dramatically increased our investment and resources over the past 5 years to play a valuable role in the advancement of Fiji." That, again, the statement on Fiji Water's website. Anna Lenzer, your response.
Well, whether or not the company says it intends to legitimize the government, the fact is it does. I mean, right now, even just in the last week in the news in Fiji, there's news that Fiji Water is working with the Fiji embassy in Japan to market its product. It works with the embassy in the States to market its product. This is part of how it has marketed itself, is working with the embassy and the government. In the story, we talk about Tourism Fiji. The President Obama, has been photographed drinking Fiji water, and Tourism Fiji circulates that photograph. Government agencies circulate these photographs of Fiji water. Elsewhere you can see the military junta in their boardroom, in their meetings with, recently was a Chinese delegation working on a hydro project, and there are Fiji water bottles all around the table. I mean, this is an impressive product. It's the country's signature export. It's got the country's name on the bottle. So whether or not the company says, we are, giving them guns, no one has accused them of that. The fact is, the product, offers legitimacy to the government.
And when you mentioned the military junta, your article goes into the development of the military in Fiji, because obviously it's not a country that's exactly menaced by its neighbors. How that military developed, and the role of the United Nations in that?
Well, I mean, basically there was, two coups in the 1980s, another coup in 2000, and then this most recent coup in 2006. So it has been, since 2006, there has been a lot of pressure on Fiji from the Commonwealth, which just suspended Fiji on Tuesday, but mainly from Australia and New Zealand, and nobody has really known quite what to do. The government has kept pushing back this election deadline. First it was March 2009, then this most recent event, and they're saying it's going to be, elections are not going to be until 2014. So, I don't think anybody really knows exactly what's going on there. I mean, the commander, Bainimarama, he's basically saying, we're doing this to bring democracy, and how dare you question us for taking time to do it properly.
But wasn't the point that you were making that because Fiji has played an outsized role in supplying peacekeepers to United Nations peacekeeping forces, that it therefore has developed a much bigger military culture, I guess, amongst than would be expected?
I mean, I don't talk about the Fiji's role in the United Nations in the story, but I think that is something that has come up a lot with people watching the war in Iraq, watching Fiji, saying Fiji's military has these peacekeepers in the United Nations, and that has been sort of a point of pressure, I think, among the people in the United Nations, because they're saying, look, in Fiji we've got a military junta, we've got martial law, and is this a contradiction here to have peacekeepers in Iraq enforcing democracy?
On the environmental record of Fiji Water, I want to go to a brief excerpt of a talk recently given by Linda Resnick, who owns Fiji Water, with her husband Stuart Resnick. She outlined Fiji Water's efforts to become carbon neutral.
First of all, we measured our carbon footprint from the place in China where the preforms are made all the way to the moment you pick this up in the store, okay? And you can watch our progress reducing our carbon footprint on FijiWater.com. We bought back our carbon offsets, and the way we did it, 120%. So every time you pick up a bottle of Fiji, you're giving 20% back to the grid. But what we did, we're replanting the rainforest in Fiji. And the reason we're doing that is so much of the Fijian rainforest has been slashed and burned to grow sugarcane and to raise cattle. And so we're trying to keep it pristine. We also saved the Sovi Basin in Fiji, which is 50,000 square miles of beautiful virgin rainforest. And we reduced the plastic in the bottle. And we're shipping through the Panama Canal instead of going and dropping off in California and trucking across the country. We're doing all sorts of things, putting in wind and solar, in an ever-ending attempt to do it better.
Linda Resnick, the owner of Fiji Water. Anna Lenzer, your response.
Basically, all of those things are things that happen in the future. I mean, the company has been fantastic at creating a list of green goals, using the lingo, but the fact is right now Fiji Water is double the amount of plastic as a lot of other bottles, and that's part of what made it a luxury product. It feels great in your hand.
Gets the plastic from China.
Yeah, it gets the plastic from China. Right now, the company has on its website, you can even see a 1 liter bottle they have estimated creates 1.3 pounds of greenhouse gases of carbon. I mean, 1.3 pounds of gas. Yeah, this idea of offsets on top of it, I mean, they're questionable to begin with. Do they take place over decades? And as I report in the story, a climate trade journal called Climate Biz reported that Fiji's our offset program is called under forward crediting, meaning it takes decades to even take effect. And they haven't even measured last year's offsets yet. So, Linda uses the present tense for a lot of things, but the fact is these things are going to happen in the future. So when the company says every drop is green, what you're buying right now is not green.
I just wanted to end with a little box, a side box that's in Mother Jones that's very interesting about the overall bottled water industry called H2 Uh-oh, Fiji is not the only bottled water with a PR challenge. It talks about Sam's Choice, which is sold at Walmart. Water comes from the Las Vegas Municipal Supply. A test by the Environmental Working Group found it had 200% of the allowable trihalmethyl, let's see if I can even pronounce it, trihalomethane carcinogen, and included several chemicals known to cause DNA damage. Dasani, which is owned by Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's bottling plant near the village, near a village in Kerala, India, began pumping groundwater in 2000 when wells dried up and villagers couldn't irrigate their fields. Coke offered a goodwill gesture, heavy metal-laced sludge from the plant to use as fertilizer. After a company ignored years of protests and 2 government orders to install wastewater treatment and provide drinking water to villagers, the state ordered Coke plant to close in 2004. Coke won the right to reopen the next year. Then there's Arrowhead, owned by Nestle. Nestle seeking a permit to pipe 65 million gallons a year from a spring in rural Colorado. When critics raised concerns about the effect of climate change on local water supplies, Nestle said it was illogical to base decisions on changes many years in the future. Then there's Volvic, which is last fall, Japan recalled 570,000 bottles of the French water after finding the toxic plant chemicals xylene and naphthalene in the bottles. Deer Park, owned by Nestle, in the middle of a drought, convinced officials to let it pump water from Florida's Madison Madison's Blue Springs State Park for 14 years for no fee except a $230 permit, more than offset by nearly $1.7 million in tax subsidies. Ice Mountain, owned by Nestle, pays nothing other than small lease and $85 yearly well fee to pump from Mecosta County, Michigan Springs. Citizens sued, saying the plant would damage nearby waterways, and prevailed. But Nestle appealed, and this past July won the right to continue pumping up to 200 gallons a minute. And finally, International Bottled Water Association created at Bottled H2O Babe on Twitter, a lover of bottled water, a convenient, refreshing beverage that shouldn't be restricted by governments or false claims. That's it. That's the little side box and the competitors to Fiji Water.
Well, I think the fascinating difference about Fiji, you know, all these bottles, they're from fake places. I mean, the sort of question about bottled water is where does it come from? And you have, you know, image of trees. It might be a parking lot in Jersey or something, but that's sort of what makes Fiji unique. It's actually branded its water to this very specific location, and I think now it's going to start to see some blowback about what is actually going on in Fiji and how long can its brand actually eclipse what's going on there.
Anna Lenzer, we want to thank you very much for being with us, author of the article Fiji Water, Spin the Bottle. It appears in the current issue of